Swales, When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast creator, producer, host, everything really. A podcast that was born out of my own lived experience of burnout and my desire to connect with people who were or are going through or have gone through burnout and share my own experience. And it's evolved from there to also having guests come on the show and for me to share professional wisdom as to how to navigate this thing we call burnout to help prevent, recover, and really transform and evolve so we don't get burnt out again. So this is When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. Please note that whilst my guests, some of us work in the burnout field and we are coaches, counselors, therapists in this space, that the information we do provide, the wisdom that we do share, cannot be tailored to meet your personal needs and should not be a replacement of going out there and getting personalized help and support from a professional in burnout for yourself. I can't stress that enough. And please, if you are finding you need immediate counselling, I really encourage to link with your a GP, a doctor, to help you with that. Here in Australia, we also have national telephone and online services, Lifeline 13114, and especially if there is any risk to yourself, if you're feeling suicidal, please contact your local emergency services, or national I should say. Here in Australia, that is 000, and also Lifeline 13114. With that in mind, please sit back, or if you're someone who listens to your pod while exercising or your commute, whatever you're doing, I hope that you find this episode enlightening and supportive in your journey and your experience with burnout. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now. In this episode, I have the pleasure of chatting with high performance coach and owner of Adventure to Excellence, Daniel. Daniel shares his deeply personal and transformative 4-year journey of overcoming burnout, a burnout he describes as a spiritual dislocation. This term captures his profound sense of being disconnected from his true self and his work. Daniel candidly discusses the various aspects of his burnout experience, but 2 pivotal themes stand out: his career shift from accountant to coach, high performance coach, and the profound transformation in connecting back to himself. Join us to explore Daniel's story and gain valuable insights into recognizing burnout, understanding its causes, and taking steps towards recovery. Learn from Daniel how to navigate significant changes in career, self, and life. Hi, Daniel, and welcome to the pod. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here to have this really pertinent conversation around your burnout and the wisdom and the changes that you have gained since that. So welcome.
Thank you. Privileged to be here with you, Shannon.
Lovely. So, hey, let's get to know a bit about you, Daniel. What are your passions? Like, what is rich and meaningful to you?
I think most thing would be, really deep connections with people, and that's where my passion for coaching really flies through. And I have a young family as well, so spending time with them. My daughter's 5, and just really love that time with them. And I guess other than that, if I'm not in my passion for learning, connecting with people, you'll find me walking on the beach and just really enjoying that time in nature.
Oh, wow. Nature, family, connections. Yeah, those are your passion, and deep connections, as you mentioned there. And what a fun age, 5. My nephew's not quite there. I've got lots of nieces and nephews, but I think of my baby nephews turning 4. But yeah, I love watching, like, they're just learning and absorbing and being their little selves. It's I don't know, rich to watch.
Yeah, it's fascinating, because you think as a parent coming in, like, you're going to be their teacher, but in essence, the other one that teaches us. It's quite powerful.
Oh, so true, so true. I mean, I'm not a mother myself. Furry children, but not children. But I so feel that way with my nieces and nephews. They're teaching me so much stuff, and I love that. Yeah, that's such a really cool thing to reflect on. It sounds like you've already answered this question. Outside of work, what would we see you doing? I mean, family, beach, nature. Yeah, what are those
Yeah.
loves outside of work? Yeah.
Yeah, or my face firmly pressed into a book, just really absorbing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I love learning.
Mm.
It's yeah, just got a huge appetite for growth and learning. So yeah, let's dive into that. Really enjoy my music as well. So
Okay.
yeah, just
Mm.
really loving to soak up, I guess. I love just experiencing that full range of human emotions, whether
Yeah.
it's that a little bit of sadness within it, or it's
Mm.
that high elation and joy. When we feel that full range of emotions,
Mm.
it makes us feel human, and that's what's so special about us being alive today.
Yeah. What are you listening to at the moment, in terms of your music? Yeah. Is there any
I've
taste?
sort of been listening to just older things that I enjoyed when I was in high school, and it's
Shit.
quite crazy connecting back to that. And it's interesting being from, like, I know a lot of the songs are sort of written about love stories or breakups and stuff, but it's
Mm.
intriguing now that I've gone through such that massive heavy burnout.
Yeah.
It's like I've got that burnout as a field that comes through in the songs as well, and there's some
Mm.
intriguing just connections and pattern recognition that I've realized from older songs that come through to today. And I'm like, it feels
Wow.
like there's a little bit of alignment to back then that set me up to where I am now. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah. I really hear that you're a deep reflector.
Mhm.
And even it sounds like you connect with the lyrics, but as you're connecting with it, you're connecting to your experiences and
Mhm.
whatever's that is coming up with that. That's amazing. I find myself with music, I listen to the lyrics and just as you shared your experience, I was like, yeah, like anyways, it's made me think. And next
Yeah.
time I'm listening to my music, and yeah, it would be cool to see because I remember definitely during a really difficult time of grief that I was listening to music as a way to help express that emotion and allow it out. So I find that really helpful. But I was connecting to the lyrics, although those lyrics were written um, and meant something for the singer who was singing it and had written the music. And I'm trying to think of, oh, anyway, it escapes me at the moment. But then my interpretation, and it was really, I was linking the lyrics with my grief.
Mm.
And as you shared your experience, it made me think of that
Yeah.
particular one for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Music is
The
such a,
music is so powerful. Like, I think, is
mm,
it Dave Grohl said, like,
yeah.
he's singing out there to like 85,000 fans, and they're all singing back to him for 85,000 different reasons. And it's so powerful and so true.
Oh God, I just got goosebumps. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
yeah, 85,000 different reasons. That's so true. Yeah, wow. You also mentioned, yeah, you're a reader and that wanting, love to learn and grow. Is there a particular book that is your fave? Yeah, favorite of all time?
Oh.
Oh. Or,
uh
or current fave,
there's
like,
quite a handful of them that are
oh, you got someone back?
favorites, but
Yeah. Or one you'd like to speak to that just comes to mind, whatever you like. No
I
pressure.
guess I seem to be drawn to, like, a Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl's one had quite a big impression on me, and I'm reading Edith Eger's The Choice. So she's
Oh,
also a Holocaust survivor as well.
oh, The Choice. Edith Eggers. Eggers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome.
So some of those are quite rich. They sort of bring us back to I guess what we call
Mm.
motivation, mortality motivation. Like
Okay.
that when we're at the face of our death or at the end, like there's a lot of motivation with that,
Mm.
just acknowledging that we are mortal. And
Yeah.
I think he's actually lived in Australia. You may be familiar. He wrote the book Man's Happiest Man on Earth.
It rings
His
a bell. I haven't read it. So,
Eddie Jaku. So he
mm,
was again a Holocaust survivor. Wrote
yeah.
that book. He immigrated to Australia, and he
Hmm.
lived to 101. And I think he did a TED talk at 99 years old. So
Oh, maybe I've heard the TED talk. Maybe
mhm.
that's why it's sort of sparking a bit of yeah, but not the I must say for a long time I had to step back from books. I think that was a lot to do with my burnout, and I couldn't consume. And I think audiobooks just wasn't a big thing back then, or wasn't as well known. And so, yeah, I now consume a lot more, but audio as well as reading. So I'll have to add those to my list. They sound really interesting. Yeah, really helpful too. As you said, that mortality motivation. Wow. Yeah, I like that phrasing. And just a last question to get to know you. But I feel like we're getting to know this. What inspires you, or who inspires you?
My wife inspires me. That's interesting. It's funny because I'm the one used to asking all the questions of people usually in the coaching environment. But yeah, my wife really inspires me. She's just so strong and does so well as a parent in raising our child. And even, my child inspires me. And I guess through my burnout journey, when I was in quite a dark place, there was a couple mentors that really showed up in the form of hope, and that was Brendon Burchard and Jim Quick. So then Brendon Burchard is known as the #1 high performance coach in the world, and Jim Quick's #1 brain coach in the world. So it's been intriguing finding those guys through the depth of that struggle for me. And that's where that intense learning and appetite for growth I've really learnt from those guys quite powerfully. And you probably, I don't know if it's on one of my shoulders, one of Brendan's books, High Performance Habits.
Yeah. I have heard of that one. Yeah. Wow. Like what you just said, two mentors that instilled hope, in those dark times, and your family, your child and your wife, the strength, of them both, and of your wife, inspires you as well. That's amazing. Well, hey, as you started to talk about there and have mentioned, with the burnout, I was wondering if we could pivot there, and first of all, just, what were you doing before the lead up to burnout? Like, what was life like? What was happening? Yeah, just getting a bit of that picture.
Everything was pretty full noise.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I guess, early days, so I started as an accountant, did 7 years in a public practice, and then I left there and worked for a family business. And so I really, really loved it. So much challenges, and it really allowed me to leverage and lean into excellence across a broad spectrum. So, but what I was dealing with is this is a group of companies that's maybe 15 different business entities, about 7 different industries across those. And so the amalgamation of all those from a financial perspective, as well as being saddled in beside the CEO, it's all of these dynamics were quite invigorating, exciting, but at the same time, through growth as that started to go internationally, and for the likes of Chile, US, and Canada, the international travel, that's another chip on the shoulders. And then becoming a father as well. I think I changed roles from being the CFO to I just wanted to be in front of the people more so. So I went to more of a commercial and operations role.
Yeah.
At the same time, maybe the year before that, founded a lease company, co-founded a lease company. I was still doing accounts for some of my mates. And so as I was learning a new role, I think I did a leadership development program. And there's just a snowball effect of all of these things on top of me. And I guess what I started finding is that I couldn't maybe get through a month without having a day off or half a day. And then all of a sudden that might have been every fortnight needing to have time off. And as that built more and more on me, I felt, I don't know, there's probably a big weight of responsibility, or maybe over responsibility. And I guess that took me into a space then when I'd have a day off, I couldn't recharge from the perspective of guilt. I felt guilty that I was away. I felt like the business was going to fall over without me. So that weight of guilt was eating me up even more so. And it's just that that
Yeah.
snowball effect. You're just going right downhill to a point
Yeah.
where I love Gabor Mate's work, and he's got a book
Mm.
called When the Body Says No. And
Yes. Mm.
when we're not listening to our own feelings,
Yeah.
that's and we don't say no to those things, our body will do it for me. So on the 1st of October 2019, I
Yeah.
had quite a really visceral panic attack while I was sitting on the edge of my bed, putting
Yeah.
my business socks on, and yeah, just the panic hit, the breath
Mm.
come in, I was clutching at my heart. My wife thought I was having a heart attack, and that's me as a 30-year-old, feeling pretty healthy.
Mm.
And that experience just really scared the crap out of me.
Mm.
But at the same time, it was an interesting response to how I got out of it. And I
Okay.
started laughing, which is quite weird. And it
Wow.
was more maybe a laughter in the sense
Yeah.
of, well, this is quite weird and uncomfortable. So you use laughter to respond to it.
I hear.
And then there's another part of it that I started, oh, this is interesting. I've never experienced this. What is happening? And I
Mm.
started it's like all these questions started going, why are we human? Why is this happening to me? Where did this
Mm.
come from? Oh, what is this? And there was a
Mm.
little bit of curiosity and intrigue with it at the same time. And I
Oh.
guess that's a really big line in the sand to my burnout journey from there.
Yeah.
And yeah, but from that point, I couldn't work for 2 months.
Okay. So that first of October, is that right? 2019,
Yeah.
where you had this panic attack,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that was the turning, well, a point. Yeah, you couldn't work from there.
Yeah.
And I really hear that cause, the lead up to that burnout, or that, I was like, it's interesting. Burnout's not this all of a sudden we're burnt out. It's a lead up, right? It's a
Yeah.
culmination of things. But I hear that there was a lot of roles of work and life, father, husband, all of the roles there at work, and a desire and a want. There, like to have a challenge and working one-on-one with people, learning, growing. But there was just a lot of it. And as you started off, you said noise, lots of noise,
Yeah.
and responsibility. And
Mm.
I heard that word, over responsibility. I can relate to that one, that we might, take on more than what actually is.
Mm.
And then not being able to rest, because when you do rest, you feel guilty. So
Mm.
all that kind of contributing externally, internally to your body, who is usually the one that goes, hello, and has to do something pretty alarming like a panic attack, or, for other people, I spoke to someone where it was severe back pain that couldn't be answered by physiological stuff alone. So yeah, the body screams out, but it can be very alarming. But it was interesting. You said there was curiosity there for you too, and that humor, and what the hell's going on. Can you tell me, because so I can really hear that causal, like what led to, but were there other things that you've highlighted or found that contributed to experiencing burnout for you, besides those things that you've mentioned?
Yeah. I believe like our emotions, or that average of our emotions, that sends a certain vibrancy or frequency from us. So if we're starting to feel those low frequency emotions like fear, guilt's one of them. I think even lust might be one of them too. I was just trying to recall it. I know that Dr. Joe Dispenza's got a fantastic spectrum of all the emotions and the actual frequency and vibration of them.
Cool.
So when you start looking at those lower ones of guilt, they're quite low frequency, but when you jump up to freedom, bliss, joy, those are crazy, fast, vibrant. So that's that energy we can really feel.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, I was spending more time in anxiety and more time in that stressful zone and more time in that guilt. So over time, that level of frequency of homeostasis starts to really pull you down. And although that may have been a panic attack in 2019, it was, the signs were there maybe September 18, August 18, where I know there was some heavy workloads I'd get a lot of the stuff in consolidated reports out to finance companies, for example. Once that was done, then boom, like it was done, then boom, I was out for a week. Like I had the week off. So there were signs across, but I wasn't listening to it until my body said no and screamed for me and connected me back to what's important, which is that breath.
And I love that perspective and sort of that just what you said about the wisdom, that frequency, that spending a lot of time in those low frequency emotions, because whilst I don't have that wisdom myself, but just yes, do have that understanding that we're spending a lot of time in guilt, anxiety, stress, and like whilst these are normal human emotions, we're human, we experience them, we're not meant to be staying in them constantly. We need that balance, or we need, when I say balance, not 50-50, but we need those full range of spectrum of human emotions. But if what we're doing and how we're interacting and what's coming in from our external world is creating that, our body's not designed to withstand that level of frequency all the time. So thank you for that.
It's fascinating that our bodies are actually always feeling an emotion.
Yes.
Like it's never ending, but it's just the contrast of all these different emotions throughout the day. So if we're spending half of our day in guilt and maybe another 25% in fear, and maybe we get home and we can watch our favorite TV show and we get a bit of happiness and joy and escape from that, you can feel like how our nervous system starts to deregulate itself. And like the emotions are such a great signal of our nervous system.
Yes. And hence the importance to be connected with it. But often in that, while we're leading up to and are burnt out, there is such a disconnect, isn't there? And actually that brings me to the question, and I feel like you're already giving a lot of this, but just checking, was there any other signs or things that you've now been able to, or even at the time, to go, okay, this is burnout, like other things that were going on that were signs for you?
Yeah, so that 2019 event hit me. I come back to work in January, so I had 2 months off, come back, and then had the Christmas time off too, and come back to work early January, and I just knew I shouldn't have. And I remember sort of it feeling like I know in New Zealand we're a big fan of the All Blacks, so when a rugby player has a concussion, they may be physically well primed, strong athletes that can enter back in the space, but the head's not quite right. That there's that concussion symptom that's still overshadowing them. And so for me, it was though I entered back in the workplace with this, I guess, that those concussion symptoms or a shadow that was really pulling me down. So like that set up a whole year of up and down, like literally every single month, up and down, until I started really leaning in. I think it would have been June 2020. This is where I discovered Jim Quick and Brendan Bouchard, and started listening to podcasts and really tapping into their learning. But I guess the key things for me is, this is what I hold true for me now as a high performance coach too, is that when I was in that 2 months off, only two things I could do was like listen to the odd sort of YouTube clip or podcast and go for walks in nature. That's all I could do. That's all my body was drawn to, which so happened to be right now is those are my greatest inspirations and passions. So the burnout was a gift for me in that sense. It stripped everything away from me in terms of what I couldn't do. And then my body could say yes to what I really loved and what I wanted to do in life. So I guess to answer your question, see, recharges, I was very fortunate that I slept really, really well. Like, so that the burnout and all these stress didn't affect my sleep. But I just remember that 2020 was, I think with the lockdown, it was a blessing in disguise. Although I was still working the whole time through, it enabled me to live the day that I wanted to. So it was more working really early in the morning, and then my daughter would have been maybe one, just about two then. We'd go for a walk to the beach for 2 hours. Then we'd come home. My wife would have lunch ready for us. She would have lunch, and then my daughter would have a nap, and then I'd get back into work. So it was a nice feeling. But yeah, over time,
Yeah.
the anxiety kept building. It kept flywheeling,
Yeah.
and I feel like that developed into PTSD in some sense.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so it sounds like what I'm hearing in your journey with burnout, when you couldn't work, you had that panic attack. That period of 2 months was really that rest, rest and um do what you felt drawn to do. And I love how you've been able to see that burnout as a gift, and that's something that I'm at as well. And I see other people being able to get to that place. And listeners, it's totally okay if you're not in that place. Certainly wasn't myself in the beginning. But yeah, it was about rest and recover. And often that's a really important thing just to sit with, because often, especially when we are experiencing a severe burnout, which yours definitely was, you can't work, that's what we need to do straight away. It's often bloody hard to do for some people because of the momentum or push that they're usually in, but we need to stop, and we need to engage in those things that our body feels it can do, which often it's nature walks or something just very gentle. Often we do, and you got back into work, and whilst there were some great things about it, or in terms of how you were working at that time, that gave you some flexibility and time with the things that are meaningful and important to you, that give balance, like time with your daughter and in nature, there were still other things that hadn't been addressed, I imagined, that was continuing that cycle of those signs that the body and mind was still not okay. He was, I'm anxious still. And you mentioned that what you feel is really that trauma response, that PTSD. Yeah. So sorry, I just want to just where we're at and sort of,
And I'd sort of break it down a little bit more, and it's a probably cool analogy for people to understand is like with that 2 months, I was so numb on the couch, and that's where the music come in for me too, which is intriguing. I'd always loved music with lyrics in it. But this was a time I remember, I don't even know how I did it. I managed to create a playlist on Spotify of just all these different instrumental music that was, I don't know, a lot more graceful. And I feel like just listening to that, I just sit on the couch, numb out, and like then I'd maybe be crying to try and disperse some of the heaviness within me. A lot of crying. My daughter's out the window waving to me. They're off.
Oh, beautiful. My dogs keep coming actually just to the side here going, hey, looking at me as if, is it playtime yet? I'm like, nope. That's beautiful. Hey, Dad. But some of the things that were helping you, it
felt as though I was actually in a state of depression and a state of PTSD at the same time. So I was so fearful of the future, but so held in the past. So the best analogy for this is when we think about burnout, I go straight to a car. Like usually burnouts in a car is quite fun, but not in this instance.
Exactly.
Depression, foot on the brake. PTSD, foot on the accelerator.
Yes.
Burnout.
Yeah.
And so that energy's caught up in the nervous system. It just starts frying us internally.
Oh, I love that. Can I steal that or borrow that or use
absolutely.
that? That's so true. It's so true. Spot on. And that's what it felt like for you too in that early
so
part.
when we start thinking about trauma, trauma's like in a space where, like, I know there's a lot of language out there about fight or flight, not so much the freeze. So that burnout, like foot on the brake, foot on the accelerator, you're frozen in the middle, and all that energy is getting trapped in the body. So for some people that get traumatized too, is sometimes there's not a way out. And I remember maybe I come across a story that there might have been like, say, 10 to 14 individuals that were trapped in something, but there was like 2 of them that had access to dig themselves out, and they then had a lot of resource and behind these people to help them. But the 2 that had the mobility to move and still get out, they didn't have any trauma symptoms, but the rest did, and that helplessness So it's quite intriguing.
Mm.
Again, just that energy that can get really trapped into the
Yeah.
body. So my form of getting that out was maybe listening to a bit of
Yeah.
music, walking that off, and taking in some nourishment in terms of some hope in
Yeah.
the form of those podcasts. And yeah, crying it out, getting that energy
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, but really hearing, and thank you for sharing, because I think this is such important for the listeners as well, hearing this, like what helped you in all these different pockets of your journey as well, in those first 2 months. So we're hearing that. And I was wondering, as things traveled, you went back to work, and as you reflect and you sort of concluded like that, yeah, that was probably too soon. And that anxiety was still flowing. Can you share, yeah, like what happened there and how, because you mentioned that's when you connected in June 2020, you connected with the two inspiring people who gave you hope. Yeah, just what happened there and what was helping.
Just the experience that I had, and I think again I had a really emotional. Again, my body just kept talking to me. I wasn't doing it, and it was speaking to me in the form of like crying, whether that was inspirational crying or expressive sort of release crying. I'm not quite sure, but when I noticed Brendan and Jim sort of walk on that podcast, it was like they had that feeling that they could walk on water. Like I was like, oh, they've got something different about them. What are they doing? So it gave me, I was sort of trapped in this space of suffering, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know a way out, and that was a light of hope for me. And it started to set me on that path of just learning a little bit more from them. And but yeah, through that I'd be 1 week or 1 month, I'll be great. Another week completely flat, and maybe having another week, a full week off. And that would go on for another 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
And then I think we had a really good summer, and I felt quite recharged. So we come around to like about February 2021. And I felt real good. And I was on fire again. And the interest rates are really low. I'm like, sweet, let's start setting up some financial freedom. I'm going to build debt up to my eyeballs, get some rental properties. I might look at another business opportunity. I was all over this, like looking at these options. The next day, had another panic attack. And it was sort of that metaphoric kick to the head to say, hey, buddy, you're not quite through this. So from that point on, I went down. I was lucky and privileged to have such a great supporting business around me and people around me. I went down, 4-day weeks, and I completely shifted my diet. So I'm a big advocate for like sometimes if we can move our physiology, meaning I love epigenetics. So when we look at nutrition, stress, and emotion, those are the three areas that can really have a big impact on us. So when I use that from a physiological point of view, it enabled me to bring a different psychological energy to where I was at. And that was a complete game changer for me. I felt so clear in the mind that set me up for success that year. I started working more into my strengths in that space, but I knew it still wasn't me. And it's interesting. My language is just listen there. It wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
That real core to who we are. So when we start, I guess I want to take a pause there and come to like burnout's not new. It's been around. Like there's been some heavy research around this in the 1970s. From you'll probably know with Christina Mashlak and Michael Leder. And there's 6 areas or 6 flags for burnout there. One being like the absence of fairness, the lack of control. Did I say overwork?
Workload, work type. I don't know if they put it under the same, but anyway, sorry, you keep going.
Yeah, the key for me, and I feel like this is a foundational of where the sort of I somehow try and draw it as a house, but like the house of burnout starts to crumble, and the 2 key ones is I feel like I guess the frames of the house may be isolation, the feeling of being isolated. And that's where anxiety can start to build more. And it's not, again, it's those things we can be alone in a crowded room.
Yeah.
So the feeling of isolation, along with a mismatch of values. And that's the cement foundation of that house of burnout. So if those two are gone, you're based, in my experience, those were the most profound for me. I know I was maybe overworked, maybe I had a sense of a lack of control, maybe fairness was all right. And I think the other one's insufficient reward. So all of those felt pretty good.
Yeah.
But when it come to values, that was powerful. So
it wasn't me, as you said.
So when I actually, through this experience, I journaled a lot. That was another way of me to express.
I did too.
Awesome.
Yeah. So another way to get that emotion out, to really connect with ourselves too, really hear what's going on. Wow. Yeah. So
I love my job. I was still into it, and I kept questioning, like, why am I not in it? Or why am I feeling this way? I love it, but I still ain't feeling this way. And I keep going back and forth, and we start to ask that debilitating question: is what is wrong with me? And that's one of the most powerful ones that really hits hard. And what I discovered through the journaling process, I think early on, I actually identified my values.
Nice.
And I went through that, and I think I identified like 23 different values, and 12 of them I needed in work. So as I went through that, I ended up with, I rated, what am I getting them out of work or am I not? And I think 4 of them were a big yes, 4 of them were 50-50, and 4 of them were a no. So overall, I was at I think I started doodling, and I did a pie chart, and the visually looked so clear, 50-50. And I got goosebumps right now. I was like, okay, whoa, this is why I feel 50-50 on my job.
This is why it doesn't feel like me. This is an answer to, I think, what I love about values, because I use that as well on myself and with clients. And it was a real pertinent area for me. What I love about values is it takes away that, rather than what's wrong with me, it's what's wrong with the situation, like, although values, of course, are part of us and it's what we're aligned with, but then we use it to reflect on, okay, is my work aligned with these values? Well, no, not completely. So I just feel like it takes away from that very toxic question of what's wrong. I feel like that question, when we can get stuck in it, what's wrong with me, can become toxic. But values are a nice way to move it in a direction that's more, helps us grow, helps us move forward. Anyway, I don't know what,
Absolutely. And I think that was one of that feeling of isolation and misalignment of values was so key. So I just started doing the opposite. And I guess through that journey, like I actually didn't know I was going through burnout. I went to the doctors, got the bloods and everything done, all completely fine. I think I got to a point where it just felt quite easy for them to hand over, I guess, I don't know what they were or whatever, just a happy pill, for example. And for me, I know that can really help people. For me, it was sort of a crossroads moment for me. And I feel it today too, is I said, if it's lifestyle that's got me into this, it's going to be lifestyle that gets me out. And that sort of led on to all of these different situations. And again, just little increments. And I slowly got better and better. Until I started going back to where I used to be, and then I had another panic attack to say, "Hey, come back over here, come back, come back."
Well, the panic attack was another thing. Okay, we went too far this way. We need to come back. And you listened as well at that second panic attack. So it sounds like, it's beautiful as I hear your story, how I hear your burnout experience. Just that, at each point, sort of learning and growing from it. I mean, obviously it wasn't smooth sailing, but like almost, going deeper and deeper into the depths of what got you there. and then doing that work. You know, I'm hearing at this point you are really looking at your values and looking at that mismatch and the isolation as well that was contributing to the continual burnout, which at the time you didn't have that language, but you knew something wasn't okay, you know, and your health wasn't all right, and continue to listen and learn and grow. And I was curious because it sounds like, you know, learning about you earlier too, that's something that's very meaningful and important to you in general. And I know you've done you are doing a lot of growing and have done a lot of growing. And I was just, hi there, a small intrusion to share with you my book, Nothing Left to Give. I know it comes up in the show sometimes, so I wanted to share with you a little bit about this book. So this is the book that I wrote, well, basically the journals I kept while I was burnt out and made the commitment to overhaul my life in order to undo the very things that got me burnt out in the first place. So perfectionism, people pleasing, very good at nurturing others, but not myself, or allowing others to nurture me, just to name a few. And I've also included the practices that I like to call wellness practices that supported me along the way to getting better. So I hope my story at least helps you not feel so alone in this and helps you along the way. So available on Amazon, but other online retailers as well. I'll leave the link to where you can purchase the book in the show notes. Thank you for allowing me to abruptly and rudely interrupt your episode, but now back to the episode. Take care of you. I feel like I'm jumping in your story, so please, if I am, you know, come back to it. But I was just wondering that because you've moved careers. So when did that all happen? And, you know, in that burnout recovery and growing, where did that all, transpire?
Yes, I guess I kept doing what I was doing, and I was in a space that I felt like I was back on top of life, but it just is still in that sort of 50-50 dynamic. I can't remember the exact timing, but I don't know if this was after that panic attack, or it could have been, I think I had that panic attack and then I would have had another, so it's that second panic attack. And maybe had another 1 to 2 weeks off after that. And I remember being alone in my house down in my lounge, and I was sort of sitting but sort of rocking in sort of a fetal position, and I was just crying like miserably and being like, why is this happening to me? Why does this keep happening? And I was really in that, and I was so frustrated, and like my life feels so perfect, but I'm in this state, and I was just like, why? And I got so emotional about it that I started just sort of expressing like, I'm done with it. I don't want this anymore. Take it away from me. Take it away from me. And again, I don't know who I was speaking to. But I had my eyes closed, and all this emotion was pouring off of me. And I just said, I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to serve. And then it all went. And I opened my eyes, and it was like that dragon that had been in a 1,000-year slumber. And it's like all of something shifted in that moment for me.
Shannon.
And when I reflect on that from now where I'm at, I kept following my nose. I kept following me. And I had some corrections to pull me back. I had a bike accident, which left me with bruised ribs and a smashed helmet, mild concussion probably. And that put me in enough pain, and I still went to work the next day. It put me in a state of like, because I kept thinking I wanted to resign, but I wasn't really ready to do it. But I was in such agony. I just, it just ended up coming out in a meeting, and I just knew it was right for everyone. So,
so almost, sorry, can you go?
So from that point on, so that was late 2021. I then had a beautiful summer. So I wasn't actually working. We did everything on a budget. We went to the beaches and the rivers, just everything. And it was just such a beautiful time. and I got back into my reading a lot more into that growth aspect. And like I just started finding my feet, and then I come across a book on coaching, and I was like, oh, this is a little bit more than just telling people what to do, or like there's an art to that. And I was really intrigued with the art and depth of the profession. And that sort of led on, and I must have jumped on a webinar with Brendan Bouchard, and he was teaching how he coaches. And so I'm in the middle, I'm in New Zealand, they're in the US. I think there's 1,000 people on the Zoom. I got to a Q&A at the end of the 2-hour teaching, and I think there was already like 20 people with their hand up, and I was like, oh no, I can't do it. I don't want to, sort of freaking out, sort of wanting to speak to your mentor.
Yes.
And then I did it at the end, and then just by chance, I got selected as the last one. So I got to talk to Brendan, and so the number one high performance coach, coached me for 3 minutes there, and it completely shifted me. So I jumped into his certification, and so that was April 22, May 22, certified as a certified high performance coach. And then they're moving you through, at the end of that process, there's a graduation ceremony, and more like a meditative one. We've got our eyes closed, hand on our heart, and we're sort of just walking through what it means to be a high performance coach, and what we've really achieved in this incubation of tremendous growth in this 4-day certification. And at the end of that, we've got our eyes closed. Brendan's speaking to us, and he says at the end that you're CHPC, Certified High Performance Coach. And he says, I'm ready to serve, I'm ready to serve, I'm ready to serve. So that was the 360 moment. So before I shared my experience of let this go, I'm sick of this, get it off me, I'm ready to serve, I'm ready to serve, take it away from me, to this moment of beauty and grace of I'm ready to serve, I'm ready to serve. And it's like this 360 moment. I know we talk about post-traumatic stress, but there's also post-traumatic growth. So there was a 360 moment that really, really shone through, and I knew that this is what I'm born to do.
Like, I mean, excuse my French, I get emotional, whether it's highs or lows. Always just, it's the F comes out. That's because when you shared that very emotional, distraught time there, and I heard those words, I'm ready to serve, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And knowing obviously where you are now, but then hearing that graduation ceremony and those words being used, whoa, like, and I just think, how it's made me reflect on how important it is to listen and be open to ourselves, to really be connected with ourselves, to have moments where there isn't that noise of whatever, where we are with ourselves, so we can be open to those messages, be open to the internal messages, but the external messages, and using the words of someone else to share this, but follow those breadcrumbs, follow those little tweaks in, in yourself that goes, oh, this is interesting, or I'm curious about this, and follow that breadcrumb. But we need to be there with ourselves to hear all that. And we often live in a world that there's too much noise to actually hear ourselves or other messages from the world that can help us connect and make those choices. I just feel like our culture often, and our way of living, or what we've been taught, like, it's just too full, too crowded to hear. And those things might be things that we really love and enjoy and inspired by, our work, our our people, our family. But if it doesn't allow time and space for us to connect with ourselves, I just really hear that through your story. I hear that really coming back to self, really coming back to and learning and growing and discovering yourself, and connection, and then connecting with the world around you in a way that's more value aligned, more true to yourself, to where you're needing to be. And coaching has become that.
100%. And Joseph Campbell would say, follow your bliss. And it's exactly that. And again, this is This burnout experience is so profound. Like this is, overall is like a 4-year journey. And
Yeah.
that journaling reflection, I've got behind me 3 to 4 years of journaling notes from my whole burnout experience. So I got a reflection on who I used to be and who I transformed into to today. And one of those things that was so key and so simple was I wrote, I think I had my expression at the front of it. And at the end, at the last couple pages, every sort of 3 or 4 months, I would write down the top 5 things I loved at that moment. And now when I reflect on all of those different moments, what are those key denominators there? Coaching, human development, nutrition, all of this goodness around human potential.
Yeah.
Meaning, purpose, love, like all of these things were that common thing. And I was just living through that quote of Joseph Campbell is follow your bliss. And another brilliant one he has is the privilege of a lifetime is being you.
Oh my God. I've like lots of goosies today, but that one really kind of went to even depths. The privilege of being you.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm going to sit with that.
Yeah. Because on the other side of that is the top top 5 regrets of the dying. The top regret is not living a life then where you are true to yourself.
Yes, I've heard that. And there's another one, but the authenticity one, not being more myself and following what I wanted. Yeah, I've heard that, which is really powerful reminder for me as well in where I'm at now and what I lead with compared to before. And I love that having kept the journals and being able to see that shift in self from those burnout days, and like I said, 4-year period. Burnout's never like, oh, one day we're burnt out, one day we're not. It's, and to where you are now, and where it sounds like more aligned with self, with you, and therefore in your world you're more you. That's amazing. And I feel like you've given so much to us today, but I'm also very mindful. I always feel like I'm missing something from someone's story. Like I don't feel like that with you today, but that's just my own anxieties going out, going, I don't want to miss parts of your story. But this, certainly moving towards the coaching and being more aligned. I was just wondering, I suppose about your life now, because we are talking a bit more about that, like, and your work and your life. Is there anything else about how you live your life now that's different from how you used to live your life? That, what's changed? A lot of things have changed, obviously, but just wonder if you had anything more there.
It's interesting because when I did that leadership development course back in 2019, there was like a profile, like it was, I can't remember the name of it, but it sort of enabled you to get a profile on where you work best in a team. And a lot of mine were like creative, innovation. I think the reporting and advising comes through strong too, from like the accounting background and business background. And the other one was promoting, which was interesting to me. Promoting and exploring. So those were, the top one was the creativity and innovation. And through that, I think too, there was, I think of the survey results, there was 519,000 people. And on the scale of, like, I remember having fun with this with one of the colleagues in the program, and he was saying, oh, you're an accountant, you're going to be structured, you're going to be analytical. And what come out of the results was that of those 519,000 people at the time, there was only like 2% more creative than me, and maybe 3.2% more flexible than me. So when we think about now with my lifestyle and my coaching, this one-on-one interactive is incredibly creative, like co-creation together. And the flexibility I have in my lifestyle, I put all of my energy into my sessions majority of them are in the mornings, and then I can have that time off in the afternoons for recharge, learning, and family. So I'm just, that survey results enable me to present myself through that creativity and that flexibility and freedom. And I'm a deep thinker, so I need that time. I don't want that stimulation.
You need that space. Wow.
Yeah.
So even that leadership program back then and doing that taught you some stuff about yourself as well that help build, listening, build your awareness of self and helping negate how you work now and how you live now to facilitate those strengths that you have. That's amazing. And it's just who you are. I've forgotten the name of that survey, but I find a lot of people I've come across have done that one. And in some ways, and for most of them, it's helped them, learn about themselves and then also learn where there might be a mismatch, in terms of what they're doing in work-wise. Wow. And I want to give space too, because, coaching is such a calling for you, that wording before, I want to be of service.
Yeah.
And I just want, I know coaching's such a wide space, in terms of who you work with and what you do, in that space. And I wanted to, and want the audience to get to know, what I suppose, who you see or what you do in that coaching sphere. Because your name of your business is Adventure to Excellence, is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about that, the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, and it's funny, do you mind if I go back to like when you said about, I feel like there might be gaps in the story that you said
Please.
earlier.
Yes.
It's like, it's sitting in the back of my mind now. It's like, I feel like there's a couple things that would be really powerful too. So
please do.
I guess, and I hope this doesn't confuse anyone. So I think when I looked at, the foot on the brake, foot on the throttle scenario, and one felt like depression, one felt like PTSD. And again, in this space, I still didn't know I was going through burnout. I researched and I come across adrenal fatigue. And I thought, that's what it is. That's what's going on. I need to get some energy back into me. My adrenals are going too much. And what I come across is like a diagram of the nervous system. So we've got the fight or flight. And it was interesting because you could see all the organs and how the hormones sort of that communication line through our bodies. And on the fight mode, you go through them, and I looked at the flight. I saw it's more fight or flight and rest and digest.
The central nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, essentially. There's, I think, but the one that elevates us, prepares us to fight the lion, as I like to call it. And the other one where we're sitting back, with our family, connecting around a fire, and we're all okay.
But it was intriguing when I looked at both of them on a diagram and saw all the organs. It's like, the kidneys are here in fight or flight, but they're not in rest and digest. So there was an on switch, but there wasn't an off switch, was the simple way I looked at that. So we need to actually have the time away and that time out to get the nourishment to stop the cue for the adrenals, the cortisol, for all of those stress hormones and the other, I guess, this overwhelm that can really build in our bodies. It was powerful. So as well as, I think with I saw myself in stuck in depression and stuck in PTSD. And I guess this comes back to the coaching, and I'm just really simple in looking at, okay, what's the opposite of those, and the pattern recognition that I've looked from looking at the books and that. So this could be completely wrong. I'm not a psychologist or anything.
We've all got wisdom. We've got, I always think, I know sometimes, we all have wisdom that we've gained and through our life and our work and our industry and the learning we've got from it. And it all adds richness. I certainly, because I can look at now that I've connected a lot more with different professionals and people, because people are people regardless of their profession. There's so much richness from all of it. I've connected with social workers, counselors, coaches, and there's how they see things because of the way it's been taught. I just oh wow, that would have been so helpful, because the way they teach psychology, yes, it could, lots of information and helpful, but it doesn't I think there's such richness from these other modalities and how and the way that you learn and work, and that I learned so much off. So I feel privileged to be in connection with other professions. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So
sorry. Yeah. So
yes.
you were saying.
So with the depression, I think again in just another random book I come across that the hippocampus, the memory center of our brain, shrinks when we're in depression.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, okay, that's the memory center. What's the opposite of it shrinking as it's growing? So with the learning and jumping into something that inspires me, all of a sudden that starts to expand that. And that was my simple way of maybe reflecting on what worked well for me, enabled me to start to take the foot off the brake.
Yes.
Whereas then the PTSD was sort of driving a lot of those hormones, and then you start to, that big line of rest and digest is, and the fight or flight is, so when I'm walking in nature, I'm in the frequency of nature, and I'm also receiving the frequency of the sunshine that again has the chemical signals within our body too, and helps with our sleep, as well as when we're walking, you've got this visual cue.
Yeah.
This is why we love going for a drive in the car, can be quite relaxing, or jump on your motorbike, like all of these different things. So you're getting this visual cue that actually relaxes us.
Yeah.
Where instead of looking for the target, where's the stress, you're gently scanning the environment and walking through that. And it's like a hypnotic trance that really helps, and that I feel helped with the accelerator. It took the foot off the accelerator. So as I dissolved the brake, took the foot off the accelerator, my body could then enter a space of I guess that grace or homeostasis.
Wow. I just love all that. Like it really resonates when I'm working with people with that, taking off the accelerator, using that analogy, that it is a lot about the receiving. I often do a lot of mindfulness and sensory, being able to connect whilst they're doing these activities, because if we're doing these activities and we're in our heads and thinking about it, it takes away from really receiving that in our nervous system calming. So I really love how you've how you've articulated that process for you and what has helped. It resonates from what I know has helped me, but helped others as well. But that depression part too, like the break, and how feeding that mind, feeding the hippocampus with the things that you love, and how that helped that grow and helped you start to go for the break. And it just made me think of, because you were stuck because you didn't know what to do. You didn't know how to take that foot off the brake or off the accelerator. But these things that you were starting to notice and expose yourself to was giving you that information and that direction to start doing that. Because what we don't know, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, turning to the information out there in the wide world, or having our eyes open, talking to coaches in the field, psychs, whoever, that to start receiving some new information to see if that works for you. And that's what you did. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so amazing. I meet so many people who've had these significant and horrific, but gift, it has been a gift in the end, experiences, and have turned to serving others through that experience. And I can really hear through you that love for what you do now. And it's amazing. And I want to give opportunity too for a bit of a shout out about what you're doing. Because are you working with burnout specifically, or what's sort of the clientele, or that the work that you're doing there? And is it online? Like, can people access you? And your work?
Yep. So I'm mainly doing 100%, at the moment, 100% online. And it just, again, that enables that flexibility for me.
Yes.
And it's quite powerful, getting the recordings as well. But and it's the access to the world. And I want to just help as many people in this space. And it's interesting. I haven't necessarily dived into a specific personnel, because I do believe a lot in the research. So with I think the world's largest study in high performance, and I really lean into some of the findings in that, it was that high performance isn't strongly correlated with age, gender, race, income, like all of these. Some of these things we can actually feel trapped, like I'm not experienced enough, or I'm too young for this. So or I'm a mum and I'm not a business expert. Like those scenarios can actually hold us back, which with the curriculum that I coach through, it really helps everyone and in any of those journeys. And like maybe recently at the start of this year, there's a guy that wanted to leave his job, and he was just had enough. But I had a coaching session with him this week, and he's on fire, absolute fire, and in that same role. So sometimes it can come down to what's going on in our life and getting some understanding and awareness. In essence, what I'm doing there is, I think I feel compulsed to read, like with burnout. I know it can get thrown around quite frivolously around. It's like I've had a bad day. I'm now burnt out, or this week's been hard. I'm really burnt out, but there's nothing sort of goes along, and I feel compulsed to read this description out.
Please do.
And it's what I believe that I've gone through, not burnout, but a spiritual dislocation. Like it's got a different. I got that's different. And that's that experience of the 4 years. So I want to read this description out. And so it talks about, so burnout is the index of the dislocation between what people are and what they have to do. It represents an erosion in value, an erosion in dignity, in spirit and will, an erosion of the human soul. So it's a lot more gripping, and like even just me reading it every time, I can feel that pain.
You go back there.
It's
the pain
a
comes.
totally different aspect, and I guess the keys in there are a dislocation. So when I think of dislocation, I go straight to, okay, what does a dislocated shoulder feel like? That's quite an ugly pain. And you have to have someone specially put it back in for you. And it's, if they do that wrong, they have to dislocate it again to bring it in. And it's quite ugly and painful in it. So a dislocation between what people are and what they have to do.
That's brilliant. I'm going to get that off you because and in the work that I do and the people I speak to on this pod, in their stories, that is so true. It's so true for most of them, I would say. I've had a client, or it might have been me, I can't remember who, I'm very bad with names and but often they describe, like, I'm soul tired. But I think that speaks to that disconnection as well. And often we are working on that connection to self, like reconnecting and then connecting to the world, because there's such disconnection or dislocation. I love that. It's just so true. And one of the things I was taught in psychology, we're taught this model of health called biopsychosocial spiritual. Have you heard about that one?
I love that. Or
me too.
Is it neuropsychoimmunology is another sort of aspect of seeing that too. That's fascinating.
And that might just fall under the biology side of things, but because when you look under each of those different areas, it then biology, the genetics, and looking at all those layers, but using that model flexibly to, like, it can be used in a lot of ways, but one of the ways is to help understand the course or the contributing factors to someone's current state, however that's presenting. But it didn't always have the spiritual component. It first started out as biopsychosocial, but the spiritual application. And I really love in the burnout work working on that aspect too. And for people, and I come from a it's about the meaning, the purpose, the soul connection, whether there's a religious, we bring that into, because, some clients and their faith. But yeah, that spiritual connection, if that is disconnected, if that's dislocated, that is certainly going to impact our health and well-being. And I think it gets missed. And I think what you've just really highlighted in burnout, it's often a big factor in it, right? It can be the biggest key of that health event, or long event, is the spiritual disconnection. And it's where often the work is needed with that person, and it's definitely been a big area for you, as well as those other areas like biology is also the nutrition, all that kind of thing. So wow, what and hearing about your work as well, you shared there, like understanding more, it's being able to help with that high performance, like helping, like you have, and I'm probably not articulate well, but like helping instill that information, instill that knowledge and wisdom, so they can let go of those self-defeating beliefs or the things that are getting in their way from connecting with themselves and growing in the direction they want to be. Is that
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, before we shared that erosion of the human soul and that dislocation, whereas the high performance side of it is like, that feels like full engagement, feels like joy, it feels like confidence that comes out of absolutely being our best. So there's a different aspect of it. And I guess what I do really well is I enable people to be themselves. So instead of a dislocation of who they are and what they do, I reinforce who they are and what they do. I allow them to express their emotions. I celebrate vulnerability. I celebrate sensitivity, and I label that to be expressed, while teaching them world-class high-performance principles that have been shown to provide success to all of these amazing people across the board in this research. So
I love that.
These clients are just set up for winning, and I say that out of confidence and out of service for what I do. Like, this is what I'm here to do, and I know how powerful it is. And those shifts can happen in 4 sessions. They can happen in less than that. I've had one client, one session, he reckoned that he was 15% more productive from our first session together.
I think that, it's amazing when a human being who is suffering, is met with all those things that you meet them with, allowing them to be their authentic self, to express their emotions, to feel. Often we don't have that out there in the world. And how that can shift us. And then also being able to give them the key, or, direction. It's almost like when you were saying, to take that foot off the pedal. It's like often people, they want to, but they don't know where to go. So you hear them in their stuck point, and you allow them to be them, but then also giving them evidence, like the stuff that's shown to work to help them be the best version of themselves, to be them. And that's amazing. That means that, you can work across the board as well. And that's what I'm learning and loving about coaching, that I feel like as psychs, we're not trained this way. We're trained from the model of more symptom and then symptom reduction. And I'm learning and knowing that that's not aligned with me and not, and I mean, regardless of my psychology training, sort of more to that growth perspective, and instilling ways to be able to help them be the best version of them. I just love what you're doing and how you go about it, and can see how that's so meaningful and important to those that you see, and how that's going to be life-changing for them as well. So thank you for sharing that. And
it's powerful, because it just reminds me too. I remember someone coming to me saying, I find it difficult to be vulnerable. I can't be vulnerable. And then like session 3 or 4, they're like, oh, I am vulnerable. I can do this. And they start expressing like a lot of things that they haven't been able to express in their life, and sort of describe that as like, this is a healthy and safe way to heal and grow. And like, that's so meaningful for that person, and just for me to be witnessing and experiencing that for people is so just really beautiful, and that expression is so key for us.
Yes. Yeah. I remember I used to get a little bit, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, why do I love seeing my clients so emotional? But it's exactly what you said there. I know it's a healthy way, yeah, to be. We need to be able to express what we're feeling and in a safe place. And then I feel so privileged to be able to be in that space, allowing that, or and that person feeling they can be and express their feelings with me, whatever they might be. And that's why it feels so invigorating, because I know how powerful that can be. And from a lived experience too, having had that for, and continue to have that in my life as well, where people have been that for me. I call it a safe place to fall. Or just a safe place, but if I'm in a slump, just to be able to fall and be heard. But hey, so much. One thing that I always liked to ask at the end, as we're closing and nearing the end, is like, what words of wisdom that, I suppose, for the individual out there that's listening to this, that might be in the thick of their burnout, or not quite even sure that it's burnout, but they're in the thick of their suffering. If there's something you'd like to leave them with, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like those those bigger two foundational things within burnout is that feeling of isolation. So
Yeah.
I know it can be hard, and for like sensitive, compassionate people, they tend to find it difficult to ask for help too. And I know I did for that as well early on.
Yeah.
But when we ask for help, it enables us to feel less isolated, and we start to lean into those really core human drives of feeling heard, feeling understood, feeling seen. Like recently, I was watching Avatar, and the way they express themselves, "I see you,"
Oh,
and
I know.
it's really powerful. So there's so feeling connected is so great, as well as the mismatch of values. So understanding, getting awareness of your values, having someone help you in that space too, can be really great in terms of how you start to click and make those increments to I guess claw yourself back, and also take those gentle steps forward too. And I'm a big advocate for, if you change your feelings, you change your life. And I'm also, if you change your energy, you change your life. So again, we come back to those frequencies, lift those frequencies up, be around those positive people, eat nourishing food, go for those walks in nature, journal, express, laugh, have joy, and just really connect with something you love. That's, I guess, my real purpose, and why I'm here with you today, Shannon, and what I'm here to do in life.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Such wisdom, and touching upon that isolation again, and why, whilst it's hard, but why it's so important to do, which is reaching out for help. Because then, I see you, and that's the power of reaching out for help, and meeting and connecting with those people that are truly able to be present with you and see you. Oh, that isolation starts to break, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why we can be, you mentioned earlier, you can be surrounded by people but feel so lonely. And it can be because there is that disconnect. There isn't that, maybe we're not asking for help, or maybe we are asking for help, but those people are not able or capable, or whatever is going on there for them. But like, sometimes it can be because we're afraid to ask for help. And I mean, shit, yeah, I was too. Even as a psych, I was afraid to ask for help, even though I'd tell other people. But I was certainly afraid to ask for help. But once I did, the isolation broke and started to connect. And yeah, I mean, it was obviously a journey, but yeah. So thank you for such wisdom. And how do people get in touch if they want to get in touch and connect with you and your work? What's the best way to do that? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'd love, my websites, which is adventuretoexcellence.com. And I guess I want to give some background too to that name.
Yes.
Like, how I talked earlier, I was pushing forward and I was wanting to do a lot of things in my life young, and then I burnt out. I had a lot of excellence in me, not so much the adventure and the joy. So that's where that adventure, the fun, I feel like I've broken that down into sort of a catchphrase for me. Is the dare to be outstanding. Like, it's that daringness and that fun, that adventure to be excellence and be the best of who you are. So yeah, adventureexcellence.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on Instagram as well. So you DM me, I'm the one on the other side of that. And yeah, I'm just happy to help and serve anyone out there that this resonates with. And I also want to deeply honor Shannon today too, with her service to burnout. Like, you're exceptional at what you do. You feel really balanced and wholesome around not only the presence you bring with me today, but I can feel what that you bring for your clients and helping in this burnout space. So I really want to honor you and congratulate you for the work that you've put in your life to where you are today. It's much appreciated from the world.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. You're gonna make me cry. I really deeply appreciate that. And totally unexpected, but I appreciate those words and thank you. It's my pleasure to be able to be in a position of helping others as well. Because I want to help others be able to move through that. So in service, as you said. So thank you. And I'll make sure that I'll in the show notes those contact details so people can get in contact. And I love hearing about that title, how you chose your business name, Adventure to Excellence. I love that. That makes complete sense. And I just want to thank you for your time and your willingness to be vulnerable and share your story with us all. I really do believe, as you probably heard me say before, that we learn so much through hearing other people's experiences, and I think it also helps break that isolation as well, and shame, and just like, okay, everyone can experience this. We're all vulnerable, and there's a way through. Life will get better, and life will change, and life will go through a roller coaster. But there's good things to come. So
Absolutely.
thank you for bringing us your story today.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Take care of you. Bye. Me again. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode of When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. I do hope that you have gained some insight, wisdom, or taking away something from this episode that is helpful for you with wherever you're at in your burnout journey or helping others with. Please also reach out. I'd love to hear from the listeners, the viewers, to find out what you're finding helpful, maybe what you still would like to know. So please don't hesitate to follow, subscribe, comment, review, like, shoot me an email. I have my details in the show notes. And if you are in need of services around burnout and you are an Australian citizen, I, in my business, Burnout Psychology Support, do offer group and individual services, telehealth, as well as in-person in Brisbane. So again, check out the show notes. I have my contact details, but the best thing to do is jump on my website at www.burnoutspsychologysupport.com. And just a reminder, of course, to reach out for personalized help. This podcast, whilst we strive to deliver information that can be supportive and educational for you, it is not tailored to meet your personal needs. And burnout is very individualized in terms of what gets us into burnout and what helps support us in getting out. So please do seek professional support. And I think that is it for me to share with you. Thank you once again, and take care of you. Bye for now.